I think I'll just open it up for questions. I think that there was a lot of different topics, a lot of different ideas that were voiced in this during the presentations, and I think from very different perspectives. I really like the multidisciplinarity. We had more designers, more planners, but I think the planners and the designers rarely talk to each other, which I find frustrating since I'm kind of straddling both these worlds. So are there any kind of things that are coming from the floor? Things that piqued your interest? Questions to the speakers also. Yes. I'm not sure of your name because it's not written on at the bottom. So please introduce yourself.
It's written somehow, I guess. Jamartis, I'm from the Critical. We have another project here in JPI Europe. I saw Cameron. Oh, yeah. Hi, Cameron. He's from the same project. What is I guess the main interest for me is the role of municipalities, or the ones who regulate, the commons, and how they see your approach, how they have they participated. I realized that they did participate in your research and workshops and so on. But it's interesting how they see that, how they see their role and responsibility to have their take in this conversation as well, in the tangible outputs, so to say. Thank you. I don't know. I'm not addressing to anyone.
Maybe Doina and Christian, you would like to take this one since it's about local municipalities.
Thank you.
Doina, would you like to start?
Yeah, let's start. I mean, in the story that I have, very briefly mentioned, and our situation with this hub that has been evicted because the local municipality has changed. The previous municipality was collaborating and supporting, but the second municipality kind of penalized the former municipality, but also had a very different political agenda. And I think this is the problem with the commons just now, that they are depending on the goodwill of whatever political government is kind of managing the context. Because there is no legislation to sort of protect these new urban commons, and I think this is a very urgent field of research and action to make to advance on this ownership aspect that I think was mentioned before, but also on legalizing and protecting the right to use, because it will be very difficult to expropriate and transform into commons all private or public property. Yeah, but what is possible is to give a right to access, and this is the history of commons. But recognize that this is a right, and it's not only depending on the goodwill of whoever will be in the government. Yeah, and then with the democracy crisis that we are facing now across the world, we can imagine that it will be even more difficult in the future. So yeah, I leave Christian also maybe to add.
Yeah, would you like to reflect on this from a planning perspective?
I would say municipalities, local governments are quite crucial, at least can be more the European perspective, because whatever you have available at your land without building permit planning, basically you cannot do too much with that. So there's a lot of connection in that regard. So municipalities can allow for a lot of different things to happen, sometimes even by not planning in detail, but then by leaving it open for a local commons initiative and so forth. But on the other side, I would be skeptical to saying it's purely local, because what municipalities are able to do or allowed to do or supported to do often relates to higher level frameworks. And also putting all to municipalities has also been quite a neoliberal strategy to say, if we put all municipalities into competition with each other, then we get even more growth to the disproportionate problems of then some that lose out, people within a municipality or certain municipalities. So that said, yes, lots of things must happen at the municipalities, but I would be strongly supportive of not saying it can all be done locally, but some things have to be taken up also at regional or even national or transnational level. Then we get into all the question, what is about administrative territorial boundaries at all in this regard?
Mhm.
Maybe
Just-
sorry. No, just go first, Ezra.
Okay, just very, very shortly. I think the value of urban commons also comes from its capacity to build communities, to organize communities around resources as well. So there is for sure the duty and responsibility of municipalities in making space for this. But I think the value of civil society and the value of building communities around resources should also be considered in this process as well. So I just wanted to highlight that that's also a very important part of building commons, I think.
Michael?
Yeah, I just wanted to add another really important actor that often is called upon beyond the local, and that's the UNESCO. You know, if there are conflicts on land, that's also experienced by communities or by some communities as a commons, and that suddenly is threatened by exploitation or excavation or so. I think in Sweden we have a lot of such cases, and then the UNESCO has been called upon, and there have been cases made. So it has been more productive to go up a level, but go up a level that's that's intranational. It creates a lot of attention and a lot of discussion, which is then also might feed into other local discussion, back into other local discussions in a really constructive way. That was just a comment.
Yeah, clear. And I think that, there was an example in the news from Romania a few weeks ago. Roșia Montană, the gold mining region that basically managed to fight enclosure through mechanisms that are very much related to commoning and commoning practices. Any other questions or things that are coming from the floor? If not, I do have something. I was wondering, because Doina, you brought in this notion of eco-commoning or the coexistence between humans and the natural world, and I think that this is kind of moving into a different space. We've been talking a lot in planning, but also in urban design, about participation, about kind of building communities, about commoning. Moving towards this elusive future where we are all in greater balance requires that we move beyond just thinking about us and thinking about humans. I was wondering if you could say something a little bit more about how we might incorporate this view of post-anthropocentrism, both in our own practice, but also in more theoretically.
Well, I think there is a very strong kind of drive now towards changing our thinking of communities, of ecosystems, to where living ecosystem or life ecosystem. In French, there is a very nice term that replaces nature, which is called le vivant. So life, or the living, and the, you know, and imagining that there are more than human communities, that there are also, we were discussing about rights to use. These rights to use can be extended to the non-human as well. The non-human have also, you know, rights, constitutional rights. And a few years ago, I think there were pioneering initiatives to modify the constitutions in Ecuador, in New Zealand, to recognize these rights of ecosystems. For example, in our case, when we have been faced with this case in court, we had an attempt to go this way, but of course you need lawyers that are able to manipulate this in their plenary. But there were protected species, you know, including hedgehogs, yeah, that were living there. So because there was a very careful biodiversity protection approach to the way we would do urban agriculture. And normally, you know, the hedgehogs would have been able to save us, you know, to protect us in that case. So there are moments like this, but the legislation and the whole society has to evolve towards this, because if these rights are not recognized, is this way of approaching, and I think we are now at the beginning. There is a lot of anthropological work, at least in France. This is the hottest thing, is to write about
more than human
anthropology, yeah. And at the same time, you know, the humans have so many other problems. I mean, wars, other things that, you know, the social and economic crisis and so on, that they don't know how to deal with. And I think all this advance a little bit slowly, but it's there. And I'm quite positive about this.
Yeah.
And definitely part of our future work goes in this direction. I mean, Meike is also involved in this network that we have set up, which is called Terra, that has a location in the Romanian mountains. And it is a center of popular ecology where we are training students into this approach, yeah, across summer schools.
Christian, before you leave, maybe you can talk a bit about is there a post-anthropocentric view in degrowth?
It's certainly there, more so, I would say, under the term degrowth than post-growth, and then especially on perspectives also from the global south that are often not even using the term, but communal ways of living, Buen Vivir, South America, or others that radically differ also in the way, especially from a planning perspective, for example, if there is private property or if there can be private property on land. So that makes a huge distinction, that we somehow have invented the way we build parcels of land, and you can own them individually for yourself and in principle build a fence around that. Okay, then we have planning telling you how far you can basically exclude others in a way, or how high the fence can be. But there's a huge variety of other ways to perceive, especially land, and that also relates to rather different approaches that are not too intensively explored in this closer relation towards what we do, let's say we in Europe, also because of this fundamental difference, how to perceive our position towards basically nature, including non-living and living nature? Are we just a part of all of that? So New Zealand has these examples of the Whanganui River, where the Maori culture says the river is us. Basically, there is not the distinction between the river and humans or others who say we are part of the web of life, the community of living. Then you also get into these questions. And that is, I find it quite interesting that there's now popular newspapers also putting emphasis on this research that recognize that some animals are able to laugh, many animals are able to play, so that there's not this very strong division, but actually more a continuum, and that raises then all these questions of, can we really speak of two separate communities, or what kind of separation is that, and for what reason?
Christian, thank you so much for participating today. I know that you have another meeting, so we'll just say bye.
Thanks a lot, and hope for a job to continue with all of you.
Yeah, we'll share the videos and hopefully manage to put everything beautifully on YouTube at some point.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye. Are there any other questions from the floor? Technically speaking, our time is over, but if we have more questions, we can stay a few more minutes.
Maybe I can just sort of say what I'm thinking out loud. But one thing that came up that I think is a common thread between the sort of three presentations we saw is just the diversity of alternatives. Like Christian spoke about the diversity of potentials that are generated by post-coincidental planning. Obviously, in the Urban Commons Handbook, we saw these different sort of thematic strands, but that they were also each rooted in an existing practice. And what we try to show with the student exhibition is also that the idea it's not about replacing one dominant system with a new dominant system, but actually a sort of plurality and diversity. And yeah, in terms of countering the process of enclosure and capitalism, I think part of the sort of mind shift that you have to go through is also to think in diversity and maybe to think like an ecosystem. And an ecosystem is strong because it is diverse and has all these different parts that relate to each other, rather than sort of the current way we do things is trying to sort of develop an efficient monoculture, which is very maybe efficient in one strand, but then also very vulnerable. And the antidote to that is really thinking like a diverse ecosystem, also in planning and practices and species and everything. So I think that's just something that stood out to me that was sort of a common thread between the three.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. The diversity of alternatives really struck me as well, and I think that there's really so many different ways that we can imagine doing things or imagine the future. I think that some of these came through in the examples that we saw, but also in the more theoretical discussion, and possibly in the exhibition as well. Yeah, on this note, shall we close? Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed the talks. I know I did. So I hope to see you at the future events. The next one will be in Sweden in September, and at that point it will be a bit of a larger event. We have to see exactly how we organize that one. It might be a whole day event, though possibly only part of it online. You'll get an invitation the same as before, and feel free to share with your network. And I hope to see you again in September.